Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Salam Media, your home of humanitarian journalism. And as we have been, we're still turning our attention to the escalating aggression on Lebanon by the Israeli occupying forces, which have seen a near daily cross border fire since October last year. In just the past few days, we've witnessed, I don't know how many Israeli strikes that have reportedly killed almost 800 people in Lebanon, and with hundreds more wounded as the violence intensifies. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated that his government is in talks with the U.S. Regarding a ceasefire aiming to remove Hezbollah's threat and allow displaced Israelis to return to their homes. But we all know what's the truth. We've all witnessed, what they did in Gaza and how they coin these aggressions, saying, they're looking for Hamas, they're looking for weapons, but in turn, they're blowing up civilians' homes and killing children and women. And in a bit, we'll be speaking to a very, very renowned guest. We're very glad that this person is able to join us even under very, very difficult circumstances. We'll be joined by Ghadi Francis, a renowned Lebanon-based journalist. She's also a war correspondent and founder of Haya Media Group. Ghadi has covered numerous conflicts across the region, and we are grateful to have her with us here to provide her insights on the critical issue and to give us much needed, in-depth, analysis of what's really happening on the ground in Lebanon. Ghadi, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time, although it's under really unsavory circumstances.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored. It's the first time I speak to someone in South Africa, although I'm a big fan of everything that you as people, nation, and legislation have been doing for the past year. I'm just sending my extended love and appreciation to all the activism and the speaking up that South Africa has been doing for my people. So I am really honored to speak with you today.
No, thank you so much. And I can guarantee you that, the pleasure is all ours. I think, first and foremost, our point of departure can be maybe you just giving us a sense of the situation on the ground right now in Lebanon. And, from the onset, from the past week or two, what you've witnessed with regards to the, aggression that has been escalating, has been bubbling up for quite a long time now. But right now, I think it has reached a point where I feel like it's not even fair to call it an escalation. This is full on aggression against the people of Lebanon by the Israeli occupying forces. Where are we right now? What's the latest that you can give us, and what's the situation on the ground?
Thank you for highlighting how important it is, the designations and the names that we are using. This is a war that hasn't started today. It's a 77-year-old war, and even sometimes older. The what they're calling escalation or the full-blown aggression has started, but we haven't lived not one day of our lives as Lebanese people without some sort of aggression from the Israeli side. They're either trying to invade our country, or they're killing our people, or they're doing both. And sometimes, and in seasons, they do these airstrikes and they commit these war crimes. And our people have gained the stamina to resist decade after decade, season after season of war. This new form of war is unprecedented in numbers, in kind of arms and weapons, and in the context. And I think never since the civil war, this is what is being reported, since the Lebanese civil war, we haven't had as much deaths and civilian innocent people slaughtered in a day. We are speaking now, as per the Lebanese Ministry of Health, more than 700 Lebanese people were killed by Israel. Most of them are non-Hezbollah, and those that were killed in the pager terror attack were Hezbollah non-combatants at the time anyway. So all kinds of breaching of international law is happening here. Thousands, tens of thousands of Lebanese were forced out of their homes. Israel is carrying on airstrikes randomly at homes, wiping out families in South Lebanon, in Beqa', which is like East Lebanon area, in the Syrian, Lebanese, Palestinian border area that we call West Beqa, in southern suburb of Beirut, multiple kinds of airstrikes in the middle of the day on bustling streets with civilians and passing by people and children, school children being harmed. This is being carried on full blown since the past few days, but Lebanon has entered a solidarity war with Palestine since October 8th. So there has been strikes. You see that in the past year there have been assassinations and strikes on South Lebanon and strikes at these areas, but it wasn't that much, it wasn't that real, and it wasn't full blown. But now they are speaking about a ground invasion. The Israelis are preparing for a ground invasion of southern Lebanon, and Lebanon's Hezbollah chief Said Nasrallah, in his most recent speech, already told the Israelis that I know you're planning to do a ground invasion and we are waiting for you and we will show you what we have shown you for the past years. So when we're talking about a fight with Lebanon, it is very different than a fight with Gaza. Lebanon
mm,
is a state, it's not a strip. Lebanon has a very powerful missile weaponry and drone weaponry kind of resistance called Hezbollah. The number is around, it's estimated to be around 100,000 fighters, and the alliance goes and stretches to Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and so on. So yes, we are in full-blown war, and I only foresee that the coming weeks and months will show the world actual battlefields in Lebanon.
And do you think there's a deliberate attempt by the Israeli occupying forces to kind of almost destabilize the whole of the Middle East? Starting obviously with Lebanon, because you're literally on the southern border and it's a front line. And the plan is to destabilize the Middle East so that they can perpetuate this agenda that they have to occupy, essentially.
Well, sir, they have never been a stabilizing entity. They have came here as occupiers. They have governed here as an apartheid state, and they still are. So it's not even trying to destabilize the region. It came as a colony. Those people that you call the Israeli state are not even indigenous to this land.
Mm,
They came and started occupying pieces of land, annexing pieces of land and taking it. They started out like that, and now when you look, they're taking out all of Palestine, and they're trying to annex by making it unlivable in Gaza and in the West Bank, to annex more and more land in Palestine. This has always been their plan to Lebanon as well. And exactly to the points where they are talking about now, they always wanted the Litani River in southern Lebanon. Since the formation of the Zionist entity, in every script and letter between the Zionist leaders at the time, and I'm talking about references in my library, especially like all the references since 1918, Zionist leaders, when they were talking about forming a Zionist entity in our region, in our land, they were speaking about Litani River. So this has always been something they wanted and they have an eye on. Maybe because of the killing spree that Benjamin Netanyahu is on, and the impunity that he's given, and the immunity that he's taking. I mean, it's very simple. When you allow crimes to happen, when you allow bombing of hospitals, when you allow bombing of refugee camps, when you allow them to assassinate journalists, when you let them do all that, when you allow them to turn civilian communication devices into ticking bombs in the hands of children or random people in any country, when you do all these kinds of breaching of human law and international law and war laws, I mean, then you gain the empowerment and the entitlement, and you can do whatever you want. So Netanyahu is failing in every sense. He failed to return the hostages. He failed to actually eradicate Hamas, and he's failing inside, and he's governing on eggshells with his relationship with his entities inside. So what's
mm,
happening is that he's trying to salvage himself by giving a different win to the Israelis, to their internal politics. He's under his own pressure, and maybe he said, like, let's pick a fight with Lebanon, and let me try to use all that impunity that I have to really sell the West that I'm eradicating Hezbollah. Committing more war crimes will not stop me because nobody actually stopped me. This is what's happening. But the
And I
place
think
and the difference is that Lebanon is not Gaza. It will
mm,
be his end. I promise you.
I want to touch a bit on that, and I think it's very important that we make the distinction between the two. That Lebanon, it's a sovereign, recognized state. It has a government. From what you've observed, and how the government of Lebanon has reacted to this aggression, what can you tell us? What can you unpack? From dealing with the evacuation of the people, so that it doesn't become a pandemonium. People are scared. People have seen what's happened in Gaza, but here you have a full-blown government with different departments. From how they've handled it and how they've dealt with it, what do you make of it?
First of all, it is really, I am in awe of my Lebanese sisters and brothers and my countrymen and women because they showed an act of solidarity that is tremendous. I don't know, it's unprecedented. I don't know if it has happened in any calamity around us, but 1 million people were forcibly evacuated in around a week. They were like, yes, it's not the best situation in the world, but nobody's on the streets today.
Mm,
This is a
mm,
country, we're talking about a country whose population is 5 million people. You're talking about a fifth of the country being evacuated, and people opened their homes, their places, schools were open, and the government was working. But it's not only the government at that point, it's the actual Lebanese community. Why? I tell you why. It's not only because they have been tried and tested for years and years. We have been in wars with the Israeli enough that I'm only 35 years, but I've seen 3 wars. So
mm,
this is traumatizing, yes, but this struggle is is encrypted in our lives. It is a fear that we are living with daily, even when there's no war with the Israelis. We're not stable as a country because of the Israeli hegemony, because of the Israeli spoiled kind of treatment by the West, and because they empower them and they arm them and they fund them all the time to continue to destabilize this region. And I tell you why. Very simple, for their hegemony. Because if there's no Israeli occupation of Palestine, there is no American colony in the Middle East. They cannot bully the Middle East into giving them oil and power and trade ways and all their presence here. They would
mm,
lose their power and their colonial imperialist presence in the region and their forced policies on the people of of this region. Israel has always been serving the American purpose in its presence. And this is the only reason I can think of when I see that during this neo-Holocaust and genocide, exactly as he commits war crimes, they are ready to give him another $8 billion.
mm,
They're not even stopping him, they're funding him. And then they tell you, I want to negotiate for a ceasefire. The Americans have zero credibility in this struggle. They have always been behind the slaughter of our children. They have always armed or even used the planes and the warships to actually bomb us. But
mm,
the people have gained that stamina, like I told you in the beginning of our conversation. I think the Lebanese people, like they did in the 2006 round with the Israelis, this time again, they will change the course of how these colonizing powers treat the indigenous peoples. You cannot kill us in silence. And
no,
if the
definitely.
ground invasion happens, you will see tremendous kinds of resistance from Hezbollah because Hezbollah is not Hamas. Lebanon is not Gaza. The weapons that they have are very different, and the alliance is very big. And the number is also way bigger. We're talking Gaza is a strip, southern Palestine. It's 7 kilometers width and 45 kilometers length. It's like a city.
Mm.
It's as big as a city in a
A
country.
small city, even not even one of the major cities
It's
of
the
the world.
most
Mm,
populated place in the world because they forced them into the open air prison for years and years and years. And then
mm,
they tell you, oh, October 7th started it. You're
mm,
putting 2 million humans in an open air prison for decades. What do you expect them to do?
No, that's true. And I think if there's one thing that you've mentioned that really stands out for me is the fact that you are in your mid 30s. You've witnessed 3 wars already with Israel. And another thing, you've worked as a journalist, you've worked as a war correspondent. What do you think, or how do you think this conflict or this aggression this time compares with the previous ones that you've mentioned, between Israel and Hezbollah, particularly in terms of maybe the scale, and maybe not just the scale, but the potential overall consequences that this one has on the region in the Middle East?
I think this is the beginning of the new Middle East. Like, this is what they say every time they're trying to open a killing spree on our people. This is what Condoleezza Rice said in 2006. She thought that they would really change the face of Lebanon, but they were met with a great resistance by the Lebanese people and the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah, and by the people of the south and the east. They did not. They stayed and they resisted, and they won the 2006 war. And also from 2006 and after that victory in southern Lebanon, really the face of the region changed, because you could see that power gave another power to different groups. There wasn't al-Hashd al-Shabi in Iraq before that, or in Yemen, or the whole region. I mean, when you win, you give others empowerment as well. All these groups that the West calls Iran proxies in the Middle East, they were all empowered by the 2006 victory in a way. And also that changed. And I think this time Netanyahu is saying he's on changing the face of the Middle East, because he thinks what the Israelis under Ehud Olmert as prime minister failed to do in 2006. He thinks now, because he has all these warships and all these billions of dollars and all this impunity, maybe he can forcibly do that and actually be victorious with the help of everything in the world, and then making these groups weaker and eradicating them in the Middle East would serve the Americans, would help the American foreign policy way more, and you would actually see a different Middle East where everyone is normalizing ties with Israel and it's done. But they will be met with even a bigger defeat than the one in 2006, because if we want to compare factually, the only common thing is that these two parties are the same parties. It's Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, right? But with many changes. Hezbollah grew. Hezbollah experienced the Syrian fight. In Syria, they fought the ISIS groups in open places, in Aleppo, in Homs, in Damascus, in Golan. So they have gained expertise in fights. They weren't sitting in their offices for the past decade. And so they also grew in numbers, and that alliance of other Iranian aligned groups in Iraq and in Yemen has empowered their alliance in the Middle East. So you see right now when Hezbollah is attacking Haifa by rockets and attacking military bases or Mossad bases around Tel Aviv using his Syrian-made rockets, the Yemenis strike Tel Aviv. The Iraqis strike the occupied Golan Heights. So you can see that there are dimensions to that. This is one. And number two, the Israelis were united at the 2006 war. Look at them now. Look at their streets. Look at their psychological state. Look at them going under to the basements every day in their millions. Look at their government. Look at Ben Gvir in the streets. Look at the Israeli media. They have never been divided like they are today. So this is another difference. And also today, thanks to you, thanks to all the people around the world who have been enlightened and who have gained knowledge about this fight, Israel is way more known to the world. In 2006, most of the world still thought that it's the leading democracy in the Middle East. It's the civilized, because the world in 2006 was still shaken by the 2001 terrorist attack on the United States and hated everybody who's Islam. So Israel was still the white nice boy that is fighting all the Islam in the Middle East. They liked it. But today, they saw Israel slaughtering children. They saw Israel assassinating journalists even long before that war. They saw Israel on the CCTV footage. They saw Israeli soldiers raping prisoners of war. They saw them do all these atrocities. They saw their footages that they are publishing. So now the world knows. So in this war as well, the mainstream media that is always warmongering over the blood of our children cannot actually succeed in making the world like Israel and support Israel while it's fighting Lebanon. And I can recite countless facts that would show you that this fight will be brutal and even more brutal because he's a criminal.
Mm,
But
mm, mm,
we will win and we will not be defeated because it's our land.
mm, mm. No, definitely, and you have every right to fight for your land. I think if there's one thing maybe you can just share with our listeners from your observation. You've mentioned so many things that point to the fact that this is a war that Israel won't win. Just the position geographically where they are and who they're surrounded by, and just how different Lebanon as a state is different, from an occupied Gaza. Why do you think there's no appreciation of those facts by Benjamin Netanyahu and his government? Why do they feel like this is another battle that they can win? They can occupy the southern border and even push further south into Lebanon. Or for them, it's just about the agenda that they have and to try and gain some kind of favor to the people of Israel who, to be honest, don't want this war to keep going on. They are losing people. They are not getting the hostages out that Hamas has hold of. And the economy is also in tatters. They can't afford it. They don't have the money. They have to go cap in hand to the United States of America, but they just don't get it. Why is that? Why do you feel like they're so blind to these facts, or for them is to try and gain this favor from winning a war that is essentially unwinnable?
First of all, I think Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't have the choice of stopping the war because if he stops the war, he will be crushed internally in the politics. If there's no war today, what did he achieve to the Israeli people?
Mm,
He will be
true.
overthrown. So war is one of his only exits, and it would be even better for him if he makes it a more international war and he drags the Americans to fight the Iranians. That would be his best case scenario. This is why I see the Iranian being open in the UNGA to nuclear discussions again and reviving the nuclear talks is something Benjamin Netanyahu hates so much. So I think this fight is way more intertwined, and the diplomacy is also a part of it. Why he's doing that also is that there is something you said while you were reciting the question, actually, Sal, and it's you said that the Israelis don't want this war. Up until the most recent statistics, they actually wanted the war, especially the right wingers. They are
Mm,
bullying him into keeping the war because they want to get rid and be safe and whatever, and do more settlements. See, this is what I say when I say the Israelis are divided. You have Israeli leftists who don't want the war, who want the hostages back, who don't want Netanyahu, and don't want Ben Gvir. And there is Ben Gvir who has this crazy speech about death to all Arabs and death to all and kill them all. And he has these people protesting in front of the court where the rapists were being sent to justice. So you have all this instability inside the Israeli politics. Netanyahu maybe thinks because he's a criminal and he doesn't have a right mind of a right human being. I can't see how a human being can sleep while slaughtering more than 20,000 children. I mean, these
mm,
numbers are not now are known in Gaza, you know. I mean, this person is not in his right mind to know that he will lose. I think he's spoiled. He took 52 standing ovations after the ICJ ruled
mm,
that he's a war criminal. He's too empowered and spoiled by the Americans. He doesn't think that he's beatable now. Maybe he thinks he's invincible. I don't know. But I'm glad that he doesn't know the reality because in the end, this struggle has cost us so much blood and he has to be crushed at some point. And after we have sacrificed our loved ones and we have seen thousands of deaths around us for the past year, at least we know that this wasn't in vain. And at least we know that the struggle of our people in the end will defeat on behalf of humanity a human criminal being like on a death spree. I mean, what stops anyone from killing anyone using technology after Israel did it?
mm,
They're
mm,
attacking humanity. They're giving examples to all kinds of terrorism, to all kinds of governments. When Israel
mm,
does that and the Americans glorify it, pagers that killed children in the middle of the day, and streets, bustling streets. You have people randomly. You randomly press a button that gives 5,000 blasts in between communities, and you're glorified and spoken about as a hero for doing it. In the Americans' effort to salvage Benjamin Netanyahu's face and ego, they are setting new records of crime to the world. So today, this person needs to be defeated. This thinking, this perspective needs to be crushed for humanity, for our kids all around the world, for the technology users all around the world. What if every person who wanted to colonize a country comes and uses technology in phones and TVs to bomb everyone and then take their land? So I think a lot has been given and sacrificed in this land, and we as Lebanese people will inevitably crush this war criminal. After all
mm.
these years of blood and sacrifice and tears, it is time to take that to the next level, because this struggle is not new. It is time it ended.
No, definitely. I think you make a very, very important point there that, for leaving Israel continue with this impunity, you're essentially setting a precedence. Anyone could feel like they can do as they please, and quote that, the Israeli did it and you did nothing about it. So what makes me any different? Before I let you go, just two quick questions. Number one, the next few weeks are going to be very, very imperative. What should the international community look out for? What should be the key areas that we need to set our eyes and ears on to get the right information? And if we are to protest and go to the streets and put governments under pressure, we go there with the right information, and we know what to code and how to code it. That's one. And number two, one mistake that I feel like we did, and this is an injustice to our colleagues in Gaza, the journalists, the people that are also, in the heart of the storm, when we interview them and talk to them from all over parts of the world, is we forgot to ask them, how are they? And personally, how they've been affected by all of this. Hadi, how are you? And how has this been affecting you? And what's next for you from here?
Well, I'm good.
I'm glad to hear that.
We are very strong and we're very empathetic people. And this is why we entered this solidarity war, because we could not see our Palestinian brothers and sisters being slaughtered like that. We are paying a very big price, and we are losing people every day. And you can see it on social media. You can see the children, the teachers, the families, and it is not human not to be okay, to be
Mm,
okay mentally, to be unshaken. It's not even human. But I tell you that I think all my Lebanese sisters and brothers have shared this now. We are on emotional roller coasters. We're up and down. You take a look at the solidarity, you're really feeling high on patriotism. You take a look at the families of the martyrs. You go to pay condolences to someone, and you see how strong and their steadfastness, and say, we're not going to leave anywhere, and this blood is our duty for our land. You listen to these speeches on tongues of mothers who are burying their kids, and you feel high on will and power. And then you take a look and you see like people who are forced to leave their very nice homes and their very beautiful villages. They are all villages. The southern Lebanon is beautiful land of olive oil and olive trees and very old towns and churches and communities and mosques. So you see that old people and the families have been forced to leave their homes, and now they are sleeping at other people's homes or other communities, and there are like big challenges. They don't know what's going to happen next. Many of them have lost their homes already, and your heart aches because how many times, I mean, we don't want our kids to see the same things again, to have to deal with the same trauma. I see my nieces and my nephew, and it's exactly how I was brought up. I was seeing kids on TV being murdered by Israel. And now our kids are seeing the same things. I mean, for how long is the world going to tell us that we are not equal humans, that our children do not deserve equal life? It's very
Mm,
unfair and it's so unjust. So you feel down again. And then you do these kinds of interviews and you look at people on the other side of the world taking the time to educate themselves about your struggle, and you go high on emotions again. So how am I? I think the Lebanese people are so proud of themselves right now. They're so proud of their stand for humanity. They're so proud of their steadfastness and their spirit and their solidarity. And they're so in pain for all the blood that is being shed, but they are more persistent.
mm,
We are, I think all the world knows Lebanese people in fashion, in industry, in politics, in art, and also in resistance. I think we will show the world that you can actually fight for your dignity, even in 2024, while you have all kinds of education. It doesn't take radicalism to
mm,
be resisting. It doesn't take radical ideologies to be patriotic. It takes love for one's land and legacy. And this is what we promise to show the world in this battle that's upcoming. Thank you for asking me how I am. And
mm.
every time
And
anyone asks me how I am, I remember that I'm good, but I can be better.
it can always be better. We're going to leave it here for now. Thank you so much for chatting to us. And just
Thank
know,
you.
from the other side of the globe, South Africa is thinking about you guys. South Africa will continue in whatever way that we can, to spread the message, whether it's in the UN, it's at the ICJ, to make sure that Israel is held accountable. And the people of Israel, the people of Gaza, the people of Lebanon, do get their freedom and they do get their justice. Thank you so much for chatting to us, and we'll chat soon. I'm really
Thank
sure
you.
about it. All right.
Thank you.
Goodbye. This has been another edition of Salam Media Highlights with myself, Salalo Makwidiri. I don't think there's much that one can say after that. If you missed the live interview, you can go to our various social media pages. You can check out the podcasts. Goodbye.